Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens won this one at home 34-17, but man, it was a game where maybe even felt like it was further apart than what that final score showed. The Ravens in this one as the victor. Safety Kyle Hamilton at the very top of the list, a 90.0 PFF grade. He had an incredible week, and the way that they've been using him lately has just really been elevating, I think, the entire defense. Running back Derrick Henry with an 82.4 in this game. Wide receiver Zay Flowers an 81.6. Edge rusher Kyle Van Noy an 80.3. And defensive tackle Nnamdi Madubuike with a 77.7. Quarterback Lamar Jackson continuing his MVP caliber campaign, now making things real interesting coming down the stretch for that award. A 90.2 overall grade. On Pittsburgh side of things, edge rusher Alex Highsmith with a 76.7, guard Isaac Suomalo with a 75.5, wide receiver Calvin Austin, 73.6, trying to step up for George Pickens, missing yet another game. Center Zach Frazier, a 67.9, running back Jalen Warren, a 66.1, and then Russell Wilson with a 63.1 in this game. What was your stat that told the story here from this Saturday game?
So this is funny because I kind of had to switch this up during the process of making this, because originally I was going to go with something with the pass rush, the Ravens pass rush, and the fact that Russell Wilson had somewhere around a 32 passing grade under pressure. And then I go and watch all those reps. I think it was 15 or 17 reps or so. And because I wanted to know, okay, what did the Ravens do? What did they do up front? Did they mess around? Did they blitz more? And the answer was they didn't do anything. And then I'm watching more and more, and I'm like, they're just sending four guys and getting there. What's going on here? And then I look on the back end, and I go, oh, they're actually lights out in coverage today. And it was their best coverage game of the season. So my actual stat now, 81.5 coverage grade as a team. Best of the season. And I think what we're getting now is, there's been much made of the move of Kyle Hamilton back to free safety. And yes, that is one thing that improves, but what does it bring schematically, right? And I think what we have with Hamilton being able to play single high, because we've been talking about him for 2 years now, playing in the box, strong safety in the slot, that versatile piece. But earlier in the season, when I was looking at the Ravens and their defense and their coverages and everything like that, it didn't feel like they had an identity. They were kind of middle of the pack in every coverage. They didn't blitz a whole lot. We knew they were struggling in the passing game, but we didn't really know why. They were just giving up too many explosives. And moving Hamilton back to free safety now, what it's done is now they're leaning into being a more single high coverage team, right? Just 1 and 3. And I think Russell Wilson probably got some flashbacks to Seattle seeing that much cover 3 in this game before they moved Hamilton to free safety in week 11, all right? 26 in their rate of using single high coverages. That's up to 6 since week 11 because they moved Hamilton back and he can just rove back there. He's got the range to handle single high. And now you got our Darius Washington in the box who's doing a good job as, the strong safety, that slot role that Hamilton was playing. So I think the difference in the usage of coverage and the effectiveness in coverage, especially with Hamilton roving back there, because you can't just take deep shots with Kyle Hamilton. He's got sideline to sideline range. Him embracing that role, them embracing a defense and a coverage set that really embraces his speed and his range back there, that's changed this whole operation on defense. And now they can still have 7 or 8 in the box when it comes to stopping the run. They were already really good at stopping the run, but sitting in single high this much helps your run game, and having a free safety like Hamilton, and that was supposed to be Marcus Williams, right? And he was kind of ineffective throughout the first half of the year. Been benched now it's Hamilton and Washington. I think it's also played a role in changing their scheme and their effectiveness in coverage, and they had their best day in coverage against Pittsburgh.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good call out. I mean, if I'll just link that to my most disappointing, I think it was just a total defensive dominant day for the Ravens, because you mentioned how well they're playing on the back end. I agree with you. They're playing aggressive. They're playing confident. And this is a team that really needed that. They have struggled a lot defending the deep ball. You mentioned, especially in the first half of the season, when just defending the deep ball, I believe they had a 77.4 coverage grade against the Steelers. And so, of course, no George Pickens in that one. We've talked about how the deep ball for Pittsburgh has been very different, very less efficient and less explosive with Pickens not in the lineup. But still, kudos to the Ravens and their coverage unit for really taking care of business. And then getting to my most disappointing was the Steelers' offensive line, because you mentioned Ravens didn't really blitz a ton. They didn't really get exotic with what they were doing. They just didn't play well up front. 4 sacks allowed, 13 pressures, 34.5 pressure percentage. Mason McCormick specifically, 2 sacks allowed, 5 pressures, 13.2 pressure percentage. I know Broderick Jones has struggled as well. So it was not a good day for the Steelers offensive line that really couldn't handle even just the front four of the Ravens. And anytime you're getting home with 4, anytime you're being effective with 4, well, then you're not going to use the coverage resources. You're not going to use the second level resources to attack the pocket because you don't have to. So that ended up being the most disappointing for me on the flip side of sort of what you were talking about there. The stat that told the story for me is Lamar Jackson's versatility, but not just in this game, but the entire season. I looked back at this whole year because there were so many different pass catchers, and it feels like he is, for a while we talked about like, all right, well, Lamar, he's a great dual threat. He's a good rushing threat. Now he's got Derrick Henry behind him, but it was like, oh, okay, before Zay Flowers, it was he just needs one great receiving option. Now he has Zay Flowers. And it's like, all right, well, now he needs kind of like one outside of Zay Flowers. And it was Mark Andrews for a little bit there. And then he went through kind of like an injury and a down spell. But Isaiah Likely has popped up a little bit. But we've always just thought that the Ravens passing attack was going to be mainly a complement of what the kind of rusher that Lamar Jackson is, but then he just needs like one other weapon, almost like what we think about the Philadelphia Eagles, right? Or maybe even the Pittsburgh Steelers. They want to be a team that runs the ball very well, has a little bit of dual threat action with their quarterback, especially when Justin Fields is their quarterback, and then they've got that deep threat option. They've got their go-to option with George Pickens. And I think some people looked at the Ravens sort of as the same way with that formula. But I looked this up this season. Lamar Jackson has a quarterback rating above 100 to 11 different pass catchers, running backs, tight ends, wide receivers. Like, it's not just he needs one option in the passing game and he's just going to go to that one person to really complement everything that they do. Lamar Jackson is elite right now, no matter who he throws the ball to. No matter if it's a running back coming out of the backfield, a tight end over the middle, wide receivers at all 3 levels of the field, he has an above 100 quarterback rating to 11 different pass catchers. To me, that's incredible. That's not just diversity and versatility. That's excellence at all of the different options that you have. And a guy like Todd Monken obviously is just sitting there licking his chops for everything that he's able to do when you have that kind of chemistry and success with the guys that you're throwing the ball to. So to me, it was another excellent step forward for Lamar Jackson to potentially winning a second MVP. We've talked about it before. I think this year is even better than what last year was from Lamar when he won MVP. Stiffer competition this year with what Josh Allen has been doing. But that versatility to me has just been incredible. My most impressive was just Kyle Hamilton. So before we get to yours, you already sort of mentioned in there, 60 total snaps for Kyle Hamilton, 90 overall grade, 2 solo stops in run defense, 2 receptions allowed, but only for 7 yards. He had a forced incompletion as well in this game. And you just talked about what a difference he makes being that free safety and how they have switched that up on the defensive side and how everybody seems to be playing more confidently because of it. So I'll turn it back over to you now. I feel like I've done enough talking on this one. You're most impressive and most disappointing.
No, I think you're right in that Lamar Jackson, it's also been his best season throwing from the pocket. And in the past, I think we've thought about him as, play action and rolling out and throwing to tight ends. But I'll tell you what, it does help to have that big monster next to you in the backfield to give you some balance. Derrick Henry, look, 24 carries, $162, 8 forced missed tackles, 7 explosive runs, also 2 more forced missed tackles as a receiver. The Baltimore Ravens are 8-0 when Derrick Henry runs for at least 90 yards. When they have balance with the way Lamar's throwing the football, their offense is unstoppable. We've seen it several times this year where they just walk on the field and their offense just kind of onslaughts their way to a win. And in this game, I think Henry being able to set the tone early, that's something he didn't get to do in this first matchup, right? I can remember, wasn't it the Ravens' very first drive in the first matchup that he fumbled and there wasn't really a whole lot of explosive running? The Ravens set the tone up front. Derrick Henry set the tone in the run game, and then it just set themselves up for success against the Steelers secondary that's really been struggling. So Henry's my most impressive. And then, going through that secondary for the Steelers, these cornerbacks, this is the clear weakness on this defense, right? They are now last in the league in overall and coverage grade, their cornerback room. 33.7 coverage grade in this game. They're dealing with injuries now. Joey Porter Jr. is hurt. Cam Sutton was struggling. Corey Trice, Beanie Bishop, you name it. I think the Steelers, it's very, very clear that you can throw outside the numbers against this team. You can get yourself, and they play a lot of man coverage for some reason still, but you can get those single coverage matchups outside. We saw it last week with A.J. Brown. We saw it this week with Zay Flowers. It's really tough right now for as good as their pass rush is. I believe they're still first in pass rush grade. They're 8th in run defense grade, but the Steelers at cornerback, that's the kryptonite of this defense. If you can throw outside the numbers, you can have success against them, and Lamar did it in this game.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure you like and subscribe the video. And if you don't have a PFF Plus subscription, you can get one to see all the premium stats that we talked about here on the show, plus the expert betting and fantasy advice over at subscribe.pff.com. The description is also right below, so if you are not a PFF Plus subscriber, you can become one today.